The crumpled paper trembled between my fingers, its yellowed edges threatening to disintegrate. My father's handwriting, always precise and measured, had deteriorated into frantic scrawls across the page. I'm Lillian, and until today, I thought I knew everything about my family's past. Being a middle school principal taught me that appearances rarely tell the whole story, but I never expected to apply that lesson to my own father. The attic had always been my refuge during difficult moments. The musty air and dim light created a cocoon where I could sort through my thoughts, usually while organizing old photographs or sorting through forgotten treasures. Today, I'd come up here to escape the growing tension with my husband Walter, who'd been acting strange for weeks. Instead of peace, I found chaos. A knocked-over box had spilled its contents across the wooden floorboards. Letters, dozens of them, scattered like fallen leaves. One caught my eye. The date matched my 18th birthday, but the words inside shattered everything I believed about my father. The money was never meant for the school fund, the letter read. Raymond trusted me. God help me, what have I done? My hands shook as I picked up another letter, then another. Each one revealed more pieces of a puzzle I never knew existed. My father, the respected community leader, had apparently betrayed Raymond, our neighbor of 20 years, in some kind of financial scheme. You shouldn't be up here. I whirled around to find my sister Madison standing at the top of the attic stairs. Her artist's smock was splattered with fresh paint, but her face was drained of color. How long have you known? I asked, holding up the letters. Known what? Her voice wavered slightly. The lie danced in her eyes. About Dad and Raymond. About whatever happened with the school fund. My sister's fingers played with her paintbrush, leaving crimson streaks on her palm. Some things are better left buried, Lil. Mom's finally starting to smile again. Evelyn's doing well in school. Why dig up old graves? Because they're not as buried as you think. I pulled out my phone, showing her the symbol I'd found sketched in the margins of several letters, the same one I'd spotted Raymond wearing as a pendant just yesterday. Madison stepped closer, her breath catching. Where did you find these? They were hidden behind Dad's old filing cabinet. But that's not the point. Why didn't you tell me? Because you were always his golden child. The words shot out like poison darts. His perfect daughter who could do no wrong. Some of us had to carry the real weight of his mistakes. Before I could respond, a floorboard creaked behind me. A shadow moved in my peripheral vision, gone before I could turn fully around. Madison's face had turned ashen. We're not alone up here, I whispered. Impossible. The only other person home is… She stopped abruptly. Who? Walter. He said he needed to work from home today. My stomach twisted. Walter, who'd been secretly checking his phone all week. Walter, who I'd caught whispering on late-night calls. Walter, who somehow knew things about my father's past that I never told him. I need to go, Madison said quickly, already backing toward the stairs. Just be careful, Lil. Some secrets protect people we love. She disappeared downstairs before I could stop her, leaving me alone with the letters, the creaking attic, and the growing certainty that my father's past was about to collide violently with my present. I gathered the letters with trembling hands, tucking them into my jacket. As I turned to leave, something caught my eye. A fresh footprint in the dust, pointing toward the corner where we kept our family's old safe. Someone had been searching up here before me, and somehow, I knew they weren't finished. The Sunday brunch tradition at my mother's house had always felt like walking through a minefield. Today, with the weight of those letters pressed against my chest in my jacket pocket, each step felt deadly. My mother bustled around her kitchen, arranging pastries on her prized china plates. Lillian, dear, help Madison set the table. She handed my sister the good silverware, the set she'd always trusted Madison with, never me. I can't stay long, I said, watching Walter chat with my niece Evelyn by the window. Something about their posture seemed rehearsed, like actors in a play. I have work to catch up on. Always working. My sister's voice dripped with familiar disdain. Some things never change. The doorbell chimed. My daughter Sophia stood on the porch, her reporter's notebook visible in her back pocket. She hadn't been to a family gathering in months, not since her explosive article about corruption in local education. I'd supported her career choice until her investigations started hitting too close to home. I invited her, my mother announced, as if daring anyone to object. Family is family. Sophia's presence changed the atmosphere instantly. Walter's phone buzzed, again, and he stepped into the hallway to answer it. Madison's hands trembled as she arranged the forks. So, Sophia said, settling into her chair. Anyone want to tell me why Raymond was asking questions about Grandpa at the newspaper office? The crystal water glass slipped from my mother's grip, shattering on the hardwood floor. That man has no right. Mom! Madison cut her off with unusual sharpness. Not now. I pulled out one of the letters. Maybe we should talk about what's in these instead. The color drained from my mother's face. Where did you find those? In the attic, along with evidence that Dad... Walter burst back into the room. Alice, those eggs smell amazing. His interruption was too loud, too forced. My mother latched onto the distraction, hurrying to the kitchen. But I caught the look that passed between my husband and my sister, a silent communication that made my stomach turn. Interesting timing, I said, watching Walter's face. That phone call. Work emergency. He wouldn't meet my eyes. On a Sunday? Sophia's journalist instincts were clearly triggered. She pulled out her notebook. Put that away, Madison snapped. This isn't one of your stories. Isn't it? My daughter's pen hovered over the page. Because I've got a source saying Grandpa Christian's old school fund is missing $500,000, and Raymond's name is all over the paperwork. The silence that followed was deafening. My mother's hands shook as she set down the egg dish. Evelyn, who'd been quietly observing, suddenly stood up. I should go, she mumbled. But Madison grabbed her arm. Sit down, my sister hissed. We're having a nice family brunch. Like we did when Dad died? The words escaped before I could stop them. When we all pretended everything was fine? You always do this. Madison's voice rose. Perfect Lillian, Dad's favorite. Thinking you have the right to judge everyone else's choices. At least I'm not the one sneaking around with my sister's husband. The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Walter's phone buzzed again. This time I was close enough to see the screen. Maddie 3 flashed across it before he could snatch it away. My mother slumped into her chair. I told you both, she whispered. I told you to leave the past buried. What do you mean both? I turned to her. What do you know about this? But before she could answer, Evelyn bolted from the table, knocking over her chair. Madison moved to follow her, but I blocked her path. Don't, I warned. You've done enough damage. You have no idea, my sister replied, her voice eerily calm. About the damage. About Dad. About any of it. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a familiar object, a pendant with the same symbol from the letters. Where did you get that? I demanded. From Raymond. Her smile was sharp as broken glass. 2 days before Dad died, Walter's phone buzzed one final time. In the chaos, I glimpsed the message. It's done. She'll know everything by tonight. The eggs grew cold on the table, untouched, as decades of carefully constructed lies began to unravel around us. Pamela's antique shop smelled of furniture polish and secrets. I found her in the back room, cataloging estate sale items, her silver hair caught in the afternoon light. I wondered when you'd come, she said without looking up. Madison called. Of course she had. My sister always ran to Pamela when things got messy, just like when we were kids. Our father's oldest friend had been our unofficial therapist, confidant, and keeper of family secrets for decades. Did she tell you about the letters? I placed them on her desk, watching her hands still over her inventory book. Oh, Lillian. She touched the yellowed paper like it might crumble. Some doors shouldn't be reopened. They were never properly closed. I pulled out the pendant Madison had shown at brunch. What does this symbol mean? Why did Raymond give it to my sister? Pamela's fingers trembled as she traced the intricate design. Your father was part of something, a group of local businessmen. They called themselves investors, but really they were... A sharp crash from the front of the store cut her off. We both jumped. "Just the cat," she said, but her voice wavered. She moved to her office door, closing it softly. "Raymond wasn't just your neighbor, Lillian. He was your father's partner in everything. The school fund, the real estate deals, all of it. The missing money Sophia mentioned? Your father," Pamela hesitated. "He made choices to protect certain people. Madison? Your mother!" The revelation hit like a physical blow. What did my mother need protection from? Ask her about the summer of '82, about what really happened with Raymond's wife. Pamela's voice dropped to barely a whisper. Ask her why she burns sage every year on June 15th. Before I could press further, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "The pendant belongs to the circle. Your father stole it, just like he stole everything else." R. Raymond's watching me, I realized aloud. He's watching all of us. Pamela moved to her filing cabinet, pulling out a thick manila envelope. "Your father left this with me before he died. Made me swear I'd only give it to you if certain things came to light." As I reached for it, another crash echoed from the store. Closer this time. Deliberate. "Someone's here," Pamela whispered, clutching the envelope to her chest. "Take the back door. Don't let anyone see you with this." What's in it? The truth about the school fund, about Raymond's wife, about why your mother— She stopped abruptly as footsteps approached. "Go, now." I slipped out the back door just as I heard a familiar voice enter Pamela's office. Walter. "Where is she?" my husband demanded. "Gone home, I expect." Pamela's voice was steady now, practiced. "She left these letters. Perhaps you'd like to explain why your name is mentioned in them?" I wanted to stay, to hear his response, but movement in the alley caught my eye. A figure in black ducked behind a dumpster. My phone buzzed again. "Stop digging or else." R. The manila envelope felt heavy in my hands as I hurried to my car. Inside, decades of secrets waited to be unveiled. But as I reached for my keys, I noticed something wrong. The driver's side door was slightly ajar. On my seat lay a single photograph, my father and Raymond standing before a burning building. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, "The night everything changed." The image blurred as tears filled my eyes. Not from sadness, but from rage. Every memory of my childhood now felt tainted. Every family dinner, a carefully orchestrated lie. My phone buzzed one final time, but this message wasn't from Raymond. "Mom knows you have the envelope," Madison wrote. "She's on her way to your house. Don't let her in. Don't let her near those documents. She'll burn them like she burned everything else." I started the car, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. In my rearview mirror, I caught a glimpse of Walter emerging from Pamela's shop, phone pressed to his ear, his face twisted with urgency. The race to uncover the truth had begun. But as I pulled away from the curb, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was driving straight into a trap that had been set decades ago, waiting patiently for this exact moment to spring shut. I'd been tailing Walter's car for 20 minutes when Jack called. My best friend's timing had always been impeccable. "Your husband just walked into the Grand Hotel," he said without preamble. "Room 412. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. "How did you—" "I've got a friend at reception. Madison checked in an hour ago." "Of course." The hotel where my father had served as board chairman for 15 years. Where he'd held all those private meetings that my mother never questioned. "There's more," Jack continued. "I found something in the old school board records. Your father and Raymond weren't just business partners. They were co-trustees of a private account, one that disappeared the day Raymond's wife died." The manila envelope from Pamela sat heavy in my passenger seat. "I might have something that explains that." "Don't open it alone." Jack's voice dropped. "Raymond's been asking questions at the school about you." A sleek black car pulled into the hotel parking lot. Through the tinted windows, I glimpsed my mother's distinctive silver hair. "I have to go," I whispered, ending the call. I followed her inside, keeping my distance. She moved with unusual purpose, her librarian's careful demeanor replaced by something harder. When the elevator stopped at the 4th floor, I took the stairs. Voices drifted down the hallway. Walter's distinctive tenor, Madison's sharp laugh, my mother's urgent whispers. I pressed against the wall near room 412, phone recording. She has the envelope. My mother's voice shook. Pamela betrayed us. It doesn't matter, Madison said. The original documents are gone. I made sure of that years ago. What about Raymond? Walter asked. He's not sticking to the plan. Raymond's grief made him weak, my mother spat. He should have died in that fire instead of his wife. My sharp intake of breath gave me away. The voices stopped. I ran, but not fast enough. Walter caught me at the stairwell. Lillian, wait! I shoved him hard. How long have you been sleeping with my sister? This isn't about Madison and me. He grabbed my arm. Your father built everything on lies. The school fund was just the beginning. Let her go. Jack appeared behind us, his police detective badge glinting. Now! Walter released me, but his face twisted into something unfamiliar. You have no idea what you're protecting her from. My phone rang. Evelyn's ringtone. When I answered, her sobs cut through me. Aunt Lillian, help! I found something in Mom's studio. About Grandpa and the fire. I can't. Someone's here. They're... The line went dead. Evelyn? My voice echoed in the stairwell. Evelyn! Jack moved between me and Walter. Go. I'll handle this. I raced to my car, the manila envelope clutched to my chest. As I pulled away, I glimpsed Raymond watching from the hotel entrance, that damned pendant glinting at his throat. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Your father couldn't save his secrets, or my wife. Now it's your turn to lose everything. Another message followed immediately, from Madison. If you want Evelyn safe, bring the envelope to Dad's old warehouse. Come alone. The warehouse, where the fire had started, where Raymond's wife had died. I opened the envelope with trembling fingers, documents spilling across the seat. Bank statements, photographs, and a single handwritten confession from my father. The fire wasn't an accident. Alice made sure of that. To protect our children from what Raymond's wife discovered. God forgive us all. My mother's voice echoed in my head. Raymond's grief made him weak. Everything I thought I knew about my family crumbled like ashes. The perfect father who'd championed education while embezzling from schools. The quiet mother who'd apparently orchestrated a murder. The sister who'd seduced my husband to access family secrets. And now they had Evelyn. My phone buzzed one final time. A photo from Raymond. The pendant, covered in fresh blood. The warehouse loomed ahead, its abandoned shell a monument to decades of lies. As I parked, I noticed Jack's car already there, empty. Sometimes the biggest betrayals come from those closest to us. I grabbed my father's confession and stepped into the shadows, ready to face whatever truth waited inside. The warehouse air reeked of old smoke and fresher betrayals. My flashlight beam caught dust motes dancing through empty spaces where machinery once stood, before the fire claimed everything. Evelyn? My whisper echoed off corrugated metal walls. A sob answered from the darkness. I found my niece huddled behind a rusted conveyor belt, clutching something to her chest. They're all lying, she choked out. Mom, Walter, everyone! Look what I found in the studio! She thrust a metal box at me. Inside lay photographs. My father and Raymond shaking hands outside the warehouse, my mother standing between them. The date stamp showed one day before the fire. There's more! Evelyn pulled out a leather-bound journal. Mom's been writing everything down. About Grandpa's schemes. About Raymond's wife finding proof of the embezzlement. About... Footsteps scraped concrete behind us. Jack emerged from the shadows, his detective's badge catching my flashlight beam. You shouldn't have brought her into this, he said. But he wasn't talking to me. Evelyn's face hardened. I had to know the truth. The truth? Madison's voice cut through the darkness. My sister stepped into view, Walter close behind her. You mean how Dad chose Lillian over everyone else? How he left her in charge of everything while the rest of us got nothing? That's not what happened. I moved between them and Evelyn. The envelope from Pamela proves... Proves what? Raymond materialized from another shadow, the bloody pendant swinging from his neck. That your father was a thief? That your mother murdered my wife to cover it up? No one murdered anyone, Jack said quietly. Sarah's death was ruled accidental because Christian paid off the investigators. Raymond's laugh scraped like metal on bone. Just like he paid you to keep quiet all these years. I turned to Jack, the betrayal hitting harder than any physical blow. You knew? I tried to protect you. His hand moved toward his gun. All of you. Protect us? Madison's voice rose hysterically. While Walter and I struggled to keep the school running after Dad died, while Mom slowly lost her mind with guilt, the school. Evelyn's voice cut through the chaos. She held up a page from the journal. That's what Raymond's wife discovered. The money wasn't just embezzled, it was laundered, through the school board, through all of you. The truth crashed down like falling timber. My father's educational legacy, built on dirty money. My husband and sister, continuing the scheme. My mother's desperate act to protect it all. That's why you seduced Walter, I said to Madison, to keep the operation going. I loved him, she spat. More than you ever did, but someone had to maintain Dad's connections after he died. A metallic click echoed through the warehouse. Raymond aimed a gun at my chest. Enough talking. The envelope. Now. It's not here. I met his gaze steadily. But Sophia has copies of everything. One phone call and it all goes public. You're bluffing, Walter said, but uncertainty crept into his voice. My phone buzzed. A message from my daughter. Mom, I'm outside with the police. Give me a signal. No bluff. I held up my phone. It's over, all of it. You'll destroy everyone, Madison pleaded. Mom, the school, our whole family. This family destroyed itself long ago. I reached for Evelyn's hand. We just couldn't see it. Raymond's finger tightened on the trigger. Sarah deserved justice. Yes, I agreed. She did. The warehouse doors burst open, flooding the space with police lights. In the chaos that followed, Raymond's shot going wide, Jack tackling him, Madison screaming. I caught a glimpse of my mother standing in the doorway, her face a mask of resignation. I'm sorry, she mouthed, before turning away into the night. Sophia appeared at my side, notebook in hand, her journalist's eyes taking in every detail. Ready to tell the real story? I looked at Evelyn, still clutching her mother's damning journal, at Walter and Madison, being led away in handcuffs, at Jack, surrendering his badge. Yes, I said. Every word. My phone buzzed one final time. A video file from an unknown number, showing my father in this very warehouse, making the deal that would eventually destroy us all. The truth had finally come home to roost. The police interrogation room felt smaller with each passing hour. My reflection in the two-way mirror showed a woman I barely recognized, hollow-eyed, defeated. Let's go through it again, Detective Harris said, spreading photos across the metal table. My father's business records, the warehouse fire, Sarah's autopsy report. When did you first suspect your husband's involvement? Before I could answer, the door opened. Jack walked in, no longer wearing his badge. His face aged a decade in days. You need to see this. He placed a laptop in front of me. A video played, Walter in his office, speaking to someone off camera. Lillian can never know. My husband's voice crackled through the speakers. If she discovers what really happened that night, everything we built will collapse. The camera panned to reveal my mother, holding Raymond's pendant. She already suspects. Madison says. The footage cut off abruptly. My hands shook as I closed the laptop. There's more, Jack said quietly. The school board meeting minutes from the day before Sarah died. Your signature is on them. That's impossible. I wasn't even... Your father forged it, he interrupted. Made you an unwitting accomplice. Everything that happened after, the fire, Sarah's death, the missing money, it all leads back to that signature. The truth hit like a physical blow. I wasn't just a victim of my family's deception. I was part of it. My phone buzzed. A text from Sophia. Mom, Evelyn's gone. Madison's studio is empty. The journal's missing. Another message followed immediately, from an unknown number. Your niece knows too much. Like mother, like daughter. History repeats. They're going to hurt her, I whispered. Like they hurt Sarah. We don't know that, Jack started, but Detective Harris cut him off. We found traces of accelerant matching the warehouse fire in Madison's studio. Recent purchases. The implications turned my blood to ice. My sister following our mother's deadly example. The interrogation room door opened again. Walter stood there, somehow looking both defeated and dangerous. 5 minutes, Detective Harris said, leaving us alone. I never wanted this, Walter said. Your father built an empire on lies, but it was Madison who— Save it! I pushed away from the table. Where's Evelyn? Safe. For now. He placed a USB drive between us. Everything's here, the real records, the proof of what your father did, what we all did. But if this goes public, you'll go down with us. That signature— You really think I care about that now? My voice cracked. Sarah died because of our family's lies. Evelyn could be next. My own sister is protecting what's hers, he finished. What your father promised her before he died. My phone buzzed again. Raymond, time's running out. Meet me where it started. Alone. Walter noticed my expression change. Don't trust him. He's been playing both sides since the beginning. Like you have? His face hardened. I loved you once, before I knew what your family really was. And Madison? She understood the price of power. He reached for the USB drive. Last chance. Walk away. Let the past stay buried. I grabbed his wrist. Where would you suggest I bury my niece? The look he gave me confirmed my worst fears. Whatever humanity my husband once had was gone, consumed by years of deception. My phone lit up with a final message. From my mother. I'm sorry, Lillian. I tried to protect you from this legacy, but some sins demand payment in blood. Attached was a photo of Evelyn, unconscious, Raymond's pendant around her neck. In the background, Madison's art studio blazed with familiar flames. Time's up, Detective Harris called through the door. I stood, leaving the USB drive untouched. Walter's hand shot out to grab my arm. You can't save everyone, he warned. I'm not trying to save everyone, I replied, pulling free. I'm trying to save what's left of my soul. As I walked out, Jack fell into step beside me. You know this is probably a trap. Of course it is. I checked my phone's GPS, marking the studio's location. But sometimes the only way through hell is to burn with it. Behind us, Walter's voice carried one final warning. Some fires can't be extinguished, Lillian. They can only consume. He was right about one thing. This fire would consume everything. But this time, I would choose what burned. Madison's studio blazed against the night sky, flames licking at memories and lies alike. Through the smoke, I spotted Raymond standing in the doorway, his pendant catching the firelight. She's inside, he said, gesturing toward the inferno. With your mother. I pushed past him, but his grip on my arm stopped me. Sarah died trying to expose the truth. Now history repeats itself. Where's Evelyn? Ask Alice. She's the one who orchestrated everything, both times. The heat pressed against my face as I entered the burning studio. Through the smoke, I made out two figures. My mother standing near Madison's work table, and Evelyn slumped in a chair. It had to end here, my mother said, her librarian's composure cracking. Where it all started. The warehouse fire wasn't an accident. I moved closer, checking Evelyn's pulse. Still strong. You killed Sarah to protect Dad's secrets. I killed her to protect you. She held up a familiar leather journal. Sarah found proof that your father had forged your signature. She was going to destroy everything, your career, your future. So you destroyed her instead. Madison helped. My mother's laugh bordered on hysteria. She always understood what had to be done. Unlike you. A support beam crashed nearby, showering sparks. Evelyn stirred, coughing. And now? I asked, positioning myself between them. Another convenient accident? Evelyn knows too much. Madison emerged from the smoke, Walter close behind her. About Dad, about the school fund, about Sarah. About you and Walter? I challenged. About how you've been embezzling money since Dad died? We protected his legacy, Walter said. While you played principal, we kept the machine running. By stealing from children? By surviving! Madison screamed. The flames reflected in her eyes, turning them molten. Dad promised me everything, then left it all to you, his perfect daughter. I never wanted any of it. That's why you didn't deserve it. Raymond stepped through the doorway, gun raised. Your father built an empire on other people's ruins. Now it's time for payment. A groan from above. The ceiling was about to collapse. Mom? Evelyn's voice, weak but clear. What's happening? Nothing that wasn't set in motion years ago, my mother answered, striking a match. She touched it to the journal. Some stories need to stay buried. No! Raymond lunged for the burning book. In the chaos, Walter grabbed for the gun. The shot echoed like thunder. My mother crumpled, red blooming across her chest. The journal fell from her hands, flames consuming pages of secrets. Alice! Madison rushed forward, but another beam crashed down, separating us. Through the inferno, I locked eyes with Raymond. Sarah wasn't trying to expose Dad, was she? She was trying to expose you. His face twisted. She was going to ruin everything we'd built together. Christian and I, we had a system until he got greedy. So you set him up, I realized. The forged signature, the missing money, all of it. And your mother played right into my hands. He aimed the gun at Evelyn. Like mother, like daughter. The ceiling groaned again. We had minutes, maybe seconds. Lillian! Jack's voice cut through the roar of flames. Fire department's here. Get out now! I grabbed Evelyn, pulling her up. It's over, Raymond. Sophia has everything. The real documents, security footage from the warehouse, Sarah's original notes. Then we all burn together, he snarled, finger tightening on the trigger. The gunshot mixed with the sound of shattering glass as water from the fire hoses burst through the windows. In the chaos, Madison tackled Raymond. The gun skittered across the floor. Go, she screamed at me. Get her out! I hesitated for a split second, seeing my sister, really seeing her, for the first time in years. Madison, I said go! She held Raymond down as flames consumed the studio. Some sins demand payment in blood. Dragging Evelyn toward the exit, I caught one last glimpse. My mother's still form, Walter disappearing into smoke, Madison and Raymond locked in their final dance. Outside, Sophia waited with paramedics. As they took Evelyn, my phone lit up with an unknown caller ID. The message chilled me more than any fire. Payment received, but the debt remains. See. The community center walls displayed the evidence of our family's destruction in stark detail. Sophia had arranged everything with a journalist's precision. Photographs, documents, newspaper clippings. 2 decades of corruption and betrayal laid bare. They're ready, my daughter said, touching my arm. The auditorium doors opened, revealing faces I'd known my whole life. School board members, teachers, parents, former friends who'd believed in my father's educational legacy. Walter sat in the front row, hands cuffed, flanked by detectives. His eyes never left the floor. I stepped to the podium, Evelyn and Sophia beside me. My father once said that truth was the highest form of justice. The irony of that statement ends today. The projector hummed to life, showing security footage from the warehouse fire. My mother's confession, recorded in her final moments, Raymond's documented threats, Madison's financial records. The school fund wasn't just embezzled, I continued. It was weaponized, used to control people, to destroy lives. Sarah wasn't the only victim. Every student, every teacher, every family touched by this institution paid the price of our lies. Gasps rippled through the crowd as more evidence appeared. Walter's signature on fraudulent documents, Madison's artwork sales laundering money, Raymond's connection to organized crime. My sister died trying to protect this system, I said, my voice steady. My mother died creating it, but their choices don't have to be ours. Evelyn stepped forward, holding up her mother's journal. Madison wrote everything down, every transaction, every threat, every betrayal. She wanted the truth known in the end. The audience stirred as Jack entered, carrying a familiar metal box. Inside lay the pendant, Raymond's symbol of power, recovered from the studio ashes. The cycle ends here, I declared. The school board will be restructured. Every stolen dollar will be traced and returned, and those responsible will what? Walter suddenly stood, despite his handcuffs. Serve time? Pay restitution? You can't undo 20 years of history. No, I agreed. But we can choose what happens next. Sophia activated the final slide. A new educational foundation named for Sarah. Every cent recovered will fund scholarships, she explained, for students affected by the corruption, starting with full rides for this year's seniors. The crowd erupted in applause, but I barely heard it. My eyes fixed on Pamela, standing at the back, clutching an envelope I recognized, the last piece of evidence. She nodded once, then slipped away. Later, as the center emptied, I found the envelope on my windshield. Inside was a photograph I'd never seen, my father and Raymond as young men, standing before the school's cornerstone. Between them, barely visible, was the pendant. A note fell from the envelope. Some debts can never be repaid, but some chains can be broken. P. Mom? Sophia appeared at my shoulder. Evelyn's asking about Madison's studio. What should we do with what's left? I looked at my daughter, so much stronger than I'd been at her age, so much wiser about the cost of truth. We rebuild, I said, but this time on a foundation of honesty. Even if it hurts? Especially then. As we walked to the car, my phone buzzed one last time. The message wasn't signed, but I recognized Walter's number. Your father would be proud, not of what we did, but of how you ended it. I deleted the message without responding. Some chapters needed to close without farewell. Evelyn waited in the back seat, Madison's journal open in her lap. I found something else, she said. A letter Mom wrote to you before... Everything. I took the folded page, recognizing my sister's artistic scrawl. Lillian, I chose the wrong legacy to protect. Don't make the same mistake. Some fires purify, some destroy. The difference is in what rises from the ashes. As we drove away, I glimpsed Raymond's pendant in the rearview mirror, now just a piece of metal reflecting the setting sun. Its power, like our family's secrets, had finally burned away. But on my windshield, one final note appeared. Truth has a price. Are you ready to pay it? See. The future stretched ahead, uncertain but unburdened by lies. Sometimes, I realized, the heaviest chains are the ones we forge ourselves. And sometimes, breaking them requires burning everything we thought we knew.